Things don't have to change the world to be considered important. This is a quote by Steve Jobs, and I think it applies a lot to animation as we now see it, which is as a media to distract children or something that is only for children. But that wasn't the case during the 1900s because animation was just being considered something new, something refreshing that all people could enjoy. Today I will inform you about what is an animated feature film, what is considered to be the first animated feature film, and what is its contender. I am a reliable source today because I researched the topics, I used reliable sources, and I also am an avid movie watcher and connoisseur. So to start off, as I previously stated, animation has been around for a long time, not as long as maybe fossils or something older, but according to masterclass.com, the earliest form of animation have been around since 1892. The animation was mostly starting off during the late 1800s and the early 1900s. During this era, there was a lot of black and white shorts, perhaps with no audio, for like Steamboat Willie or your Oswald Rabbits that were created during this time. And they were all drawn by hand, frame by frame, by animators. Once again, according to masterclass.com, it states how the first film that was created was a French work by Emile Coles called Fantasmagorie. I probably butchered the name, but Fantasmagorie, I watched it, and it was like a 1 to 2 minute short with no audio, and I don't think it should be considered the first, or it's not really a film, it's more of a short, because according to the Oscars, for an animated film to be considered a feature film, it has to be over 40 minutes long, and it has to have several major characters that are animated. And in this French piece of work, there is no characters, no character development. It's just showing off. It's the first actual animation that was hand drawn in traditional ways. So to continue, my second point, the Oscars definition is what we're using to define the first animated feature film. So with that in mind, what is the first animated feature film? So according to history.com, in 1939, Walt Disney came out with his first film called Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. It's very common and it's very popular even in today's day and age. And just to prove how much of a risk it was, 1939 was the year the stock market crashed, and it was before the Second World War. So for Walt Disney to come out with something new, and in Technicolor I might add, is something that really revolutionized filmmaking and animation as a whole. And according to history.com, once again, the film made over 1.5 million in profits, which in today's numbers doesn't sound like a lot, but I used a smart inflation calculator called Smart Asset, and according to Smart Asset, 1.5 million during the Great Depression era would be 19 million in today's numbers, which is very impressive, especially for the first Technicolor movie that came out. So to keep going, to continue with my third point, despite the success from Snow White and how much of a big step forward it was for animated films as a whole, there is another film worth mentioning and to be considered as something, as a stepping stone. So according to the New York Film Academy, there was a 70-minute film called El Apóstol that was made in 1917. That was close to when the First World War was. So also according to Zippy Frames, it was created by a man called Quirino Cristiano, who was an Argentinian, and he made the animation about Argentinian politics that were going on at the time, which proves that animation is more than just something for children, because it was used in this case to something to explain the politics that were going on at the time. To keep going with Zippy Frames, it states that Quirinos also had a second film that was so successful. The first one was so successful that he made a second one the year after, so 1918, called Sin Dejar Rastros. Both of these films were successful and they had theatrical releases. So the question is now, why wasn't it considered the first? And Zippy Frames continues to state that there was a fire in the animation studio, and the only copies of both movies were hard copies. So after those were gone, there was no proof that the movies actually existed besides the witnesses that were there, making Disney the pioneer of the first animated feature film, which is quite sad, I might say. To conclude, animation is such a beautiful art that I appreciate, and I don't think it matters which one was first, because I think both of them changed history. Even if Quirino Cristiano's work can never be seen again, people remember, the witnesses that were there saw that it was something new, that it was something that was refreshing, just as Walt Disney's did 20 years after, and without the risks of both, because Walt Disney's, it was close to the Second World War. Quirino's was during almost the First World War. These were risks that men took to take a step forward in animation and in art, and they were ultimately successful in what they set out to do. And despite Disney being the pioneer now, Quirino Cristiano is now known as a famous animator that is now appreciated, even if his work can no longer be seen, the first original two. So today, without them, animation would probably take longer or would not exist. So thank you for following me along on this journey, and hopefully you learned something new about animation and something about movies and how it means more than just pictures on a page. So thank you.